And welcome back to my studio. I'm going to do another exercise using the same subject as on the first video, working from this gentleman here. On the first one we used charcoal. On this one I'm going to change the medium to pen and ink. It's also an opportunity to learn the basic techniques not only of pen and ink but also of watercolour. And I intend to do another exercise using watercolour and hopefully a third one using acrylics. Okay, so in a few moments we'll make a start and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is to draw up the character again. So I'll start with the head. It's easier to relate everything else to the side of the head. To the sides of the head I should say. Okay, get his nose in. And I can come back, if I get the outer dimensions in first, and I can come back and do a more detailed drawing in a moment. Get his ear in, his eye, his hat. To save time, I'm trusting my eye rather than doing any measuring, such as taking the head as a unit of measurement and so forth. I'll perhaps return to that at a later date for those who need a refreshing on the measuring. But at the moment I'm just going to trust my eye. Okay, so now I've got the head in, it makes life easier to rest. Get the arm in. Here's the other arm here. Get his rather large hands. Again, I can come back and tweak these later. Then we come down to the bottom of his raincoat, down to the midriff. And as I said, I'm doing my version of this gentleman and not copying it as we might from a photograph or do a photographic version. I'm aware that the proportions may not be strictly there, but it's a pen and ink exercise aimed at introducing you to the basics of it. So as I said, that's fine for the moment. I can come back and tweak later, but as a working drawing I think that's sufficient, and in a moment I can start the ink process. Okay, regarding materials, I use cheap synthetic brushes when using ink. I don't use them for watercolour. I keep a different set of brushes, but a set of cheap synthetic ones are sufficient. The danger is that if you use these for watercolour, grains of ink can catch in the bristles and transfers to your watercolour. So a cheap set is ideal. I'm going to do the mixing in here in a moment. Further materials obviously is you need a container or containers, one for clean water and one for washing the brushes. Also masking fluid. I'm not going to use it on this occasion, but it's used again with this medium and also with watercolour as well, masking fluid. In other words, I can protect what's ever underneath the ink, such as the paper or indeed watercolour. It might be another colour, whatever. You apply the masking fluid, you can quite happily paint over it. Once it's all dry you can peel it off and reveal what's underneath. The other alternative is white gouache or indeed white acrylic. When I've then completed the ink drawing, or again the watercolour, to put some highlights in, I can use the white gouache. If I remember, I'll perhaps use it on this occasion. A pipette. We need the pipette to measure out the water into the wells. If you try to use a jar, you end up spilling it. So I'll make a start with the clean water. Another tip is ensure you squeeze out enough water to do the whole painting. It is very, very difficult with ink and watercolour to go back and remix the same value or indeed the same colour. very difficult. Okay, as you can see here, I'm mixing up two values really at the moment. So another dose of paper, water I should say. There we go. Will be sufficient for this exercise. But I can't stress enough, do make sure you measure out enough water. The other piece of equipment which I didn't mention is a calligraphy pen to do some linear work, or if you prefer a fine liner. In the absence of those, you could use a very thin brush. Okay. Regarding the ink, it's black. I'm using here Indian ink, as you can see, but you can also use calligraphy ink, quick ink, or whatever. Okay, but it's best to use the black. You do have a further choice of coloured inks, but more of that possibly later videos. If you're doing a similar exercise in watercolour, use one colour, such as a Payne's grey or a deep blue. You wouldn't use a light colour, such as a yellow. Then, to avoid spillage, I put the neat ink into there, and you can see, make sure you put them out in a correct choice. Light tone, mid-tone, and then straight from the pot. I'm going to make life simple and just use 3 tones, okay? So what I now do is, into the pot, I then put it into the mid-tone, give it a good stir, okay? Then into the light tone, good. And of course now we have to do a test to ensure that we get the right tones. When you get used to this, you can develop a further range of tones. So I'll need this to use a light tone. I'm happy with that. Give the brush a little wash. Now I'll try the mid-tone. The other thing to remember is, that's a good mid-tone. It could go a touch stronger, which brings me to the next point you need to remember. Is you apply the ink, or indeed watercolour, and it can seem very dark when you apply it, but as you see here, it will lighten, sometimes as much as 50%. So be aware of that. It can look very dark and dramatic when you first put it down. I'll take a chance to go over the top of there. I think I'd be okay, but as you saw there, you can apply another tone on top of a lighter tone. So the process has to work from light to dark. And just to show you, this is now straight from the inkwell, and that's the darkest tone. It's when we add the darkest tone that you get the real drama. Very quickly, I'm going to show you now the 2 main techniques, both watercolour and indeed pen and ink. I'm going to wet into wet. Here we go. Dampen the paper, and there is a difference between dampening it and saturating it. I'll go for the mid-tone, and you will get used as to when to put the medium down. The other tip is this: don't just press on the brush as we normally do, because you'll release all the paint or the ink at that point. You very, very gently touch the paper and apply pressure as you go across. That way you get a more even distribution of the ink. Once again, overlap slightly, apply very little pressure, apply it as you go across. Do not go back and fiddle. That's when it can get messy very quickly. Once more, very lightly touching the paper, apply pressure as you go across and lift off. That's becoming dry already, but you will get a very even distribution of the medium. I could tilt this a little bit for it to run back as well, but I'll leave it on this occasion. Now I will go to the mid-tone once again, and this will be wet onto dry. Gently touch the paper, stroke the brush, lift off. Underneath, overlapping a touch, down, apply, lift off. And again, you will get an even distribution of the medium. As you can see, we need both. Here we got hard edges because that's the ink applied to dry paper. Here it was damp, so you see you get soft edges, and it is a combination of both. Right, that's the test done. Oh, just before I finish, as I said earlier, you can work dark onto light. So if I come back, even going to the same value, you see, even though it will lighten off. So one of the techniques is to work from light to dark. We'll leave that now, and now I'll return to the drawing. Okay, back to the drawing, and now to the exciting part of the exercise, the actual application. I'm going to work on this occasion with the light tone first, and then building up. Okay, so I'm going to do a lot of, well, say a lot, wet onto damp, so I can quickly wet the whole of the image. I'll do that quite quickly. You will get used, as I said earlier, to when to put the medium down. Obviously too soon and it will run everywhere. The board is on a bit of a slant because you need gravity to help you. But I also need to judge the right moment to apply the ink. I'm going to do that quite soon because it is drying off. The paper I'm using here is multigrade, or multi-medium I should say. For practicing on it's fine. If I was doing a more finished piece, then I would use more expensive paper such as watercolour. A stir into the light tone, and then using the round brush now. There we go. Remember the golden rule, don't rebrush. It's very tempting to want to fiddle here, but don't. Get in. As you can see, you can work quite quickly. I know it's easy to say, be relaxed about this, but in actual fact you won't avoid being very apprehensive, nervous. That's only natural. The more you do it, the more proficient you get, but it is practice. There we go. So if that's really the light toning, you can see how quickly, because as I keep reminding you, I cannot fiddle. I can do it tweaking later. You go to the hands. I haven't put the stick in. Okay, his cane. I can do that quite quickly. There we go. Right. It's damp now, so I need to wait, be patient till it dries off. What I'm going to do is take the hairdryer to it. Okay, having taken the hairdryer to it, if I want to test how dry it is, avoid putting the finger on because you deposit grease. Use the back of the knuckle there. There we go. That's quite dry. Now I can go to the mid-tone and I'll come back into his cap there. Good. Done. And then I can turn down his front a little bit. I'm going to follow instinct a little bit here, as I keep reminding you again. I don't need to copy this image precisely. It's only a subject to work from. You can see it does dry off quite quickly. So working from light to dark allows you to work in a more spontaneous. There we go. And where else? I'll probably leave the sleeve quite light. I have to work more quickly than I normally would because of the problem with the battery on the camera, the videoing, the editing, uploading. It all takes a lot of time and the batteries don't always last long enough. Come back into the hand. Alright, maybe I will just go a bit on here with a mid-tone. I want to leave a line down the top of that sleeve to differentiate it between the darker tones and the lighter tones. Good. Okay, I'll leave it at that. In a few moments I can probably come in with the darker tones. Maybe just a touch more. What I'm going to do here, just to demonstrate again, is that was with the light tone. So I'm going to go in once again with the light tone. In other words, you're giving it a second coat. Okay. Here we go. Perhaps now I could take a chance and come in with the darker tone, which will be straight from the inkwell itself. While it's still, no, I just better just dry it off a touch. So I just get the hairdryer to it again. Okay, so I've dried it off using the hairdryer. Now we can add the real drama to it and apply the ink neat directly from the pot. I'm still going to be using the round brush. Again, I'm going to go where the instinct takes me. I may have to dampen it in certain places because I need the paint, or the ink rather, to run. So I'll come back in now with the neat ink directly from the pot, tip of the brush, and now of course you can bring a bit more life to this gentleman. Okay, I'll come in and mark out his eye, his nose. Come down here, then I can get the sleeve in. Okay, that's the end of the sleeve, work in the hand a little bit. The second hand here. He's got a very large hands, quite gnarled. This was a sketch of a farmer done by Kiffin Williams, so Sir Kiffin Williams, he gave him his full title, a North Wales artist who worked and lived on Anglesey. Right, I'm going to dampen here just to show you. This actually is the cleaning water. As you can see, it's darkened it already, just with the cleaning water. It's almost like a fourth tonal value. I'll dampen here using the same. Then I can go to the neat ink, and because the drawing is on a tilt, as you can see, it's darkened. And of course you get some lovely soft transitions. I'll dampen here because, as I said earlier, you do need a combination of both, of hard edges and soft transitions. I want to retain some of the light areas as well. Into the neat again. Here we go. I don't need to do too much, it will find its own way, it will run down the damp areas. Yes, I need to come back to the face. Got quite a prominent nose on him, his bottom lip. It's run a little bit there. And once again, I go wherever the eye takes me. Now we haven't yet started using the pen. Now I'm going to come into the legs, because that's wet on to dry. I'm using the cleaning water here to get me going. In other words, I'm dampening the paper. Then I can go back in straight from the pot with the neat. You'll see it run here. And I must remind you, it is literally one stroke of the brush and move on. Yes, as you've been seeing me, I do go back and tweak a little bit. So as you can now appreciate, you get some real drama taking place here. I don't probably need to do too much more to this. Then I can start to do some linear work. This method, or indeed if you're using watercolour, is very good if you're working outside, want to gather information quite quickly, working tonally. I better just do something now because there's quite a contrast between the sleeve and the dark area, so I better just bring it up a little bit more. Okay. The face, yes, I need to come back into the face. So once again, I think I go for the mid-tone. That's going to run, so I'll have to avoid it as much as I just to bring up the face a touch more. Tonal value. And I can come in and do some further tweaks in a moment. I'm going to stop there, dry it with the hair dryer, and then another exciting process is using the pen. Okay, so I dried it off with the hair dryer. What I better do quickly is put in his walking stick. I'll go to the neat and very carefully, well, that's going to dry off a bit in a moment. Good, that's fine. Now I can take the pen. I'm using the calligraphy pen, but I'll do a little bit perhaps with the fine liner just to show you that there's not much difference between them. I'll start off with the calligraphy pen. This is at this point now, again, you can have a very free, very loose approach to it and enjoy the drawing process now. Okay, so I'll work on the face a little bit. There's his eye down to his nose. And I'll keep repeating, be quite relaxed. And don't be satisfied with just one line around something, you can repeat. Yes, it's a scratchy sound, and I'm going, as I keep saying, where the eye takes me. Those who've done this with me before are also aware I could use another tool, such as a twig. I've still got some for sale. If anyone wants them, just let me know. I'll put them in the post to you. Come down to the legs, down to the feet. I'll probably be doing an exercise at some point with just drawing using the pen and ink. Go on, I'll take the fine liner. As you can see, you get similar results. On this occasion, even finer lines, because it's better on 0.5 this one. I think I'll stick to the calligraphy pen. I've shown you the initial process. And yes, it's the same for approaching watercolour, which hopefully I will be doing. Come back in. I don't want to take this much beyond what I'm doing here for the reasons I stated earlier. The problem with the memory on the chip, the battery, and the editing and uploading and so forth. Okay, so please, right, if I perhaps really start to leave it at this. I won't bother using the gouache at this point. I've got some light areas in here anyway. So the only thing left to do really is to drop in a shadow to anchor this gentleman down. There we go. Same with a stick. And I think I'll leave it at this. I do hope you'll have a go. Maybe just bring up the eye a bit more. Good. As you can see, I've done nothing with the background on this occasion. I've left it white. And I'll bring this now to a conclusion. I hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for looking. And I'll see you next time. Just one other thing I need to do, of course, is to take a mount and view it in a mount. And to stand back a little bit. There we go. It's always best to look at your work, your finished piece, with a mount around it prior to framing something. I know this is just a working exercise, but it does enhance it a little bit with the mount. Okay, so I'm going to leave that now at this point. And thanks for watching.